Well, hello. Let's talk about the second body paragraph of writing an essay. You have now, at this point, if you're writing your second body paragraph, you have written your introduction where you did not give any facts or details. What you did was you talked about your thesis in a general way, funneled it down to your actual thesis statement, and then you were done with your introduction. Nothing too crazy. In your first body paragraph, you gave an example, your strongest example from the first major source we read, your best quote or quotes from that first major source. And you explained how those quotes strengthened your thesis, how they were proof of your thesis, right? This clearly shows blank, and then boom, you're out the door for that. So you're done with your first major source. Your second body paragraph, you're doing the exact same thing as you did in the first body paragraph, except you are using a different source. You're using your second source or your second strongest source, right? So let's take a look right now at the form that I've given you to figure out your step-by-step form, which is going to make this very simple for you. So we'll go to second body paragraph. Here it is right here. You're going to notice this is very similar, if not almost exact, to the first body paragraph directions. The one thing that is different you're going to see is there's only 3 steps on this, not 4. We're going to skip the first step, which we did in the first body paragraph, which was again, just giving a sentence or two explaining your thesis. We don't need to do that. You've explained your thesis in your introduction and in your first body paragraph. So what I would do is rather than start by saying, hey, fear negatively affects people, and you can see this in literature. You've already done that in your first body paragraph. In this one, we're skipping that. We're going right to this one, to just explaining that your second source is another fantastic example to show that fear, in this case, fear negatively affects people. So you would start off your second major paragraph or second body paragraph with something like another fantastic example, or a piece of literature which shows this phenomenon occurring would be blah, 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 blah. In this case, it's House Taken Over. So I would say House Taken Over is another fantastic story which shows people acting negatively or being affected negatively by fear. And then I would give another sentence saying there are several examples in this. It's a very scary story where characters are really affected by fear. Boom. Then we give our quote to prove it. So we move on to step 2. And I would definitely use, and I must use, another quote starter. You can go back to the old and trusty. Consider the following quote from House Taken Over as a fantastic example of this happening. And then I give my quote. Of course, I can say this can be clearly seen by the following passage or quote, or an excellent example of this can be seen when blank happens or when the main character says, pardon me. Then you're going to insert that quote. Of course, you are going to put it in quotation marks. You're going to cite it correctly, which means at the end of the quote, you don't put a period inside the quotation marks. After the quotation marks, you put the parentheses, and inside the parentheses, you'll either put the page number that we took it from or the title itself of the story. And then after the parentheses, you would put our period. And of course, after you have given the quote, consider the following quote from House Taken Over, and you give that quote, then of course it's time to explain that quote. And of course, you have to start explaining that quote with a explanation starter or a quote finisher, as I like to call it. And that is something like, this is an excellent example of people being negatively affected by fear for the following reasons. Or you can keep going. There's a couple other ways that you can say this. This quote clearly shows how some characters or some people are really affected by fear, and then explain it. What I would do is be direct. OMG, did you see how fear negatively affected this character? It was crazy. Look at how many stupid things it made him do. Or look at how badly it affected him to the point where he was unable to continue living normally. Anything like that. So again, 3 things that you're going to do in your second body paragraph. 1, explain how your second source is another fantastic example or provides more fantastic examples of this phenomenon of fear negatively affecting people or making them do dumb things. 2, you're going to provide a quote, and you're going to start that quote with a quote starter. Consider the following quote, or this quote clearly, an example of this can be seen in the following quote. And then 3, you are going, oh, by the way, make sure you cite that correctly. And then 3, you are going to conclude your quote with a finishing statement that explains how the quote proves your point. So this quote clearly proves my point that fear negatively affects people by showing blank. So just explain it in a sentence or two. And when you are done, you're done with body paragraph number 2, and your paper's rolling along. You're almost halfway done. Fabulous job. At this point, you should be realizing the real hard work is reading the sources and finding and annotating the quotes. Once we've done that, you simply follow this format of step by step for each paragraph, plug the information in, make sure it's grammatically correct. You go over it several times. Your periods and commas are in the right places, no misspellings, no grammar errors, and you'll get a fantastic grade and feel good about your writing, confident about your writing, which to me is the most important thing, the confidence of being able to do this well, because I know you all can do it very well. It's a question of following these steps. So fantastic job. Good job with body paragraph number 2. Tomorrow we'll do body paragraph number 3. We're getting closer to the end of this essay. Have a great day.